Welcome back to another episode of Tuxedo Time, where we wear tuxedos and it is time.
Podcast edition. Special 2-year anniversary edition.
Podversary edition.
Podversary. You had to make a portmanteau, didn't you?
What's a portmanteau?
It's combining two words.
Oh, yeah, I had to. It would be such a wasted opportunity.
Podversary.
It's like blogiversary, bloggerversary, vlogversary, podversary.
So we've been doing this now for 2 years.
Yes.
Have we figured out a theme? Do we have a theme for this?
I don't know. If you're new here, this podcast is basically an extension of our main YouTube channel, Becki and Chris. It started off as
which in and of itself does not have a single niche or topic.
No, it doesn't.
It's kind of all the shit we're into.
There's pillars. This podcast is an extension of that YouTube channel. It originated on that channel as kind of a segment where we could sit down and talk to you guys about topics. And then we thought it would be better fitted as a podcast. So we started this and we basically have candid, unfiltered discussions about life, video production, and being a creator while wearing our sweatpants, AKA our tuxedos. If you didn't know what that meant, now you know. And that's kind of my little description of what this podcast is.
Yes,
Would you agree?
Those pillars that you're talking about are sort of main.
Oh, wait, are you talking about our main channel?
Well,
our pillars on our main channel.
Yeah, but by proxy, this podcast as well, because it's an extension of the main channel.
Yes.
So it's basically photo, video, sort of visuals, multimedia, if you will.
Yep.
Home design, renovation / decor / modern design. And travel, which is usually helicopter related stuff because I'm a helicopter pilot and we travel sometimes by helicopter.
Yes.
And it's what I like to do.
Yeah. So this podcast, when we say
encompasses all of our interests.
That's our main channel. And this podcast being an extension, we kind of deep dive on the things that we talk about on our main channel. So the topics kind of spur from videos that we make over there. So if you are listeners of the Tuxedo Time podcast and have never watched our main YouTube channel, go check it out. Becki and Chris on YouTube.
I wonder if anybody are tuxedo aficionados, like actual tuxedo aficionados.
Let me know in the comments.
And they found our podcast because they thought it was going to be all about tuxedos, but it's not.
But it's not. If you are watching this on YouTube, let us know in the comments if you just listen to the podcast or watch the podcast. And
they probably give us 1 star if that was the case.
Yeah, they're like, what is this about? Why are they talking about a massage? Rub and tug. I thought it was supposed to be about video.
Which episode was that again?
I think it was episode 15. I can't remember.
That was probably one of the stupidest stories that we ever have done.
Yeah, it was really dumb. Yeah, so we are a number of episodes in now. We started this podcast 2 years ago. It started out as an audio-only podcast. We were using video mics. Remember those days?
Yes, we had Rode video mics basically on tripods.
Yep.
And we were sort of trying to angle them so that they were as close to our mouths as possible. But it created a very difficult setup because having to face you as we were talking and then you still having to have a mic that's not on a proper mic stand.
Yeah.
My neck was cricked by the end of it.
Yeah. So we kind of moved around setups. We never really had a permanent spot where we'd record the podcast. So we were in the old filming room, then in the living room, then we were down here. And then after, I think it was 14 episodes of just doing audio, we realized that we liked doing this and it was fun and kind of sustainable. We've been a little slack on the uploads, but we haven't dropped it off the way we did with Creatively Committed, our first podcast, which we'll talk about shortly.
Yeah. But after, how many episodes in were we when you posted the podcast setup we were using on Twitter?
Okay. So we were 14 episodes in when we decided that we liked doing the podcast, then that we wanted to make a video podcast. So start this YouTube channel so we could post video podcasts, 3 angles. I decided to do that. Actually, it's easier to edit 3 angles than it is to edit 1. But, and then 2 episodes into our video podcast was when we had this interaction with Rode on Twitter.
They basically were looking at our setup using video mics and they're like, oh my God, they're probably cringing.
Yeah. So basically I am Patrick T. posted a photo of his podcast setup where he was using these pod mics and the Rodecaster Pro. And I was like, wow, that's a beautiful setup. And I posted a picture of our shitty setup where there was a pair of pantyhose pulled over a hanger attached to a thing. And they were like, oh my God. And within 10 minutes, there was an email in my inbox from Rode being like, can we hook you up with the Rodecaster setup? It was like, yes, please.
Yeah, no, it's a great setup.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
There's a definitive moment when we implemented that setup. It's like, oh, this sounds so much better.
Yeah. And it was about the same time where we kind of settled on this being the podcast set.
Right. And
kind of came at the same time.
Yeah, this isn't an ad for Rode.
No, but thank you, Rode, for hooking us up and improving our podcast.
Yes, and it's nice because the setup was everything I hoped it was going to be. It's literally like plug and play.
So easy for people
sounds
who don't know
great
audio.
Right out of the box, especially for people like us. We don't know audio very well. And it just sounds great right out of the box and professional and with minimal tweaking. So that's a very good product, in my opinion.
I agree. So what are we now? Are we 30 episodes in?
I don't know.
Let me check how many episodes in we are.
Hold, please.
Oh my gosh. We are 31 episodes. This is episode 31. So here we are, 31 episodes in. It's kind of funny. You see this progression, right? Like we started with the gear that we had just to see if we like doing this. Was it sustainable? Yes, it was. Then we moved to video podcast. We liked that. We could do that. Then we got the new gear and the whole set. And now we're episode 31.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I have fun doing this podcast.
Yeah, it's a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Just having a little chat.
Yeah, I'd get to hang out with you and chat about shit that we'd probably only talk about on a Sunday over coffee until you had to have a bowel movement and then the conversation would be over.
There you go.
But following with the theme of slowly adding things over time, it took us 2 years to get to the point now where we have video podcast, audio podcast, show notes, a proper setup, 3 angles on the video set. And now we're going to add an Instagram account to the mix.
Wait, we're what?
We're adding a podcast Instagram account.
She's adding it.
I am adding it. So if you guys want to follow us over on Instagram, the Tuxedo Time Podcast, we're just going to be posting short clips from the podcast, but also some photos that we talk about in some of the episodes that are normally on our show notes, but we're going to post them on Instagram too for a laugh.
Yeah, the show notes are on our website, so it's a lot easier for most people who browse Instagram already to probably see some of that content there.
Yeah, I thought it'd be a fun way to kind of share some older photos in a kind of a different way. It's definitely going to have a different vibe from our like Becki and Chris Instagram account where it's all photography. Tuxedo Time Instagram is going to be kind of a mix of graphics, old photos, and video stuff. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. So if you want to follow us, you can check the link in the description box.
There you go.
But I kind of want to do some experimenting with like reels and stuff. When we started this podcast and started doing videos, I had this intention of doing these like short clips taken out of the podcast and just posting them as individual clips. But I kind of feel like it messes up the feed. If you want to like binge listen to the podcast, it's easier just to, play it and let it go through. So I thought, hey, maybe it would be kind of fun to, clip out some fun sections of the smaller podcast, post it on Reels, and just kind of like experiment with that and see how it goes. We talked last time about shorts and Reels.
I know,
and
right?
How we don't really
exactly
want to do
how
it.
we don't want to do shorts.
Yeah, we don't. But this might be a way where it feels less like there's value kind of added because we're pulling like certain
pull quotes.
Exactly.
Excerpts.
Yeah. So that will be kind of fun. So I want to talk for a second about Creatively Committed, our first podcast. This is the theme song that we used for the original guy. So when we started that podcast, that was originally supposed to be a live show on our Facebook group called Pixel and Lens, which is like a photo video club. If you want to join it, I will leave it in the show notes. And we started this video series where we'd go on live on Facebook. We'd interview like a photographer or YouTuber or whatever live with them. They would ask the questions and then we'd film it for our YouTube channel and then post it as a podcast. And we got 3 episodes in and we failed.
It's hard though, because you were trying to do it all at once. You did it's like a podcast, which in and of itself was a little bit different for us. We didn't even have proper mics.
Yeah.
We did it with video, multiple angles. And then it required not just you and I, but another person who you were interviewing.
Yeah. So now it's not only just us, it's hard enough for us to
And we
find
started
time.
it in Newfoundland.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of photographers.
Actually, we started in Vancouver.
Didn't we do Dave Howells from Newfoundland?
We did Trevin from Vancouver first.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Then Dave Howells and
Yes.
Lizzie Pierce.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, it just wasn't sustainable. Like we didn't have access to the people. And quite frankly, I don't really want to run a interview podcast. It's just not something that I want to do, so that kind of failed.
Yes.
So we were kind of reluctant to start something new, I think.
But while you've made this pretty extra with all the angles, it's still, I think, it's more sustainable by just the virtue of not having to be reliant on having a guest on it.
Yeah, and I think it's fun to have a place where we can kind of have these like uncut, unfiltered conversations about things that relate to our channel without posting like an hour-long video on our main channel. And I think as time progressed to like when we tried Creatively Committed and it didn't really work out, and then we added the segment Tuxedo Time to our YouTube channel, we were finding that when we made that segment, it was kind of like this, where we'd sit down and say, hey, like, this is what's going on. We're answering questions or we're hanging out.
But even then we couldn't really like put an uncut thing on because our YouTube channel was pretty polished and edited.
Exactly. So it was significantly cut down.
Right. So, I mean, like the maximum like duration we'd have of a conversation might be like 10 or 15 minutes max.
Exactly. And what I was finding with that, it was like, didn't really give us the ability to jam as much information or have these conversations, you know, in a way that I wanted to have them, where it kind of felt like you were hanging out with us and chilling, where it felt almost rushed. There was lots of jump cuts and stuff.
Yep.
And what that segment kind of turned into was like, oh God, we don't have a vlog this week. Let's do Tuxedo Time.
Yes.
And you know what I mean? And I think
when we were doing vlog after vlog after vlog.
Yeah, this was right when we moved to Buffalo. And I think that was around the time where our main channel progressed into something a little bit different than what it had been originally, because it started off being like documenting our life and vlogs, and then Tuxedo Time happened. It's like, oh, we're having a conversation, but then it turned into more like tutorial based stuff, and now we're doing helicopter stuff and travel stuff, and now we're into more tutorials and story based content and series. And so now something like this, like Tuxedo Time as a segment, doesn't really work on our main channel.
Right.
So we felt that it was great.
It's a more random thing to add to our channel.
Exactly. So that's why we decided to start a separate podcast, and then in turn also start this YouTube channel. And it kind of just gives us a different platform to, you know, make different types of content. And, you know, maybe some people might not be interested in our main channel and might want to just hear us shoot the shit about.
Yeah, but you know what? There's people use podcasts differently though.
Yeah.
Right? Like
not everyone has time to sit down and watch YouTube videos.
Think about all the people that have commutes.
Yeah.
They'll throw podcasts on, me included. So like there might be channels that I might not watch, but I'll listen to the audio version because I'm on a commute. Can't watch YouTube videos driving to work.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the difference, because with me, like the only time I get to listen to podcasts is when I'm going for a walk. And if an episode comes up, I'll use that as an excuse to go for a walk from somebody. But, you know, I don't have a commute. I work from home. So a lot of times if I'm taking a break, I'm on YouTube. I'll, you know, watch a quick 10-minute video and then I'm off working again. So, you know, my podcasts are kind of saved for walking or traveling or the rogue time that I have a long drive, which is not very often.
Nope, not at all. Jeez, I almost thought I forgot to hit record that time.
As we talked about in the last episode, I don't know where the 2 years went.
Dude, last 2 years, I felt like one big long year.
Yeah. But it is funny now, like 31 episodes in, I feel like, you know, we're still like, what is this, you know, podcast really about? I think we're starting to nail it in now, and we've got our set, we've got our 3 angles, we've got our setup, and now we can kind of just hammer on content. And I think the goals going forward for this podcast is to continue it just being an extension of the channel and giving us a space to deep dive on these weird topics and hopefully chat to you guys in the comments. It's something that we weren't able to do when it was just audio only. It was kind of like us talking at you, but no way to really interact with you.
Yeah. We should have some guests on this year virtually, because I think this can pair with your phone or Bluetooth, I think.
Yeah.
So we could call people theoretically and have them on as guests. So
that's kind of one thing I'd love to do this year, is to bring back Creatively Committed in some kind of capacity where maybe it's not necessarily like an interview like it used to be, but maybe it's just like we have a guest on and we shoot the shit, whether they're in person, depending on what happens with COVID, or whether it's on the phone. I think that would be really fun. I'd like to introduce a couple of new segments where maybe we have a podcast about a topic, but then we phone somebody to get their advice on like the last half of the episode or something like that, which I think would be kind of fun.
Expert opinion.
Yeah. You know,
expert consult.
I have this vision of like, you know, talking about starting a YouTube business and like calling Chris and Lizzie for like 10, 15, 20 minutes and just, you know, and asking them questions. So I think it'd be fun to bring something like that back in some capacity, have some guests on. And then also, like, I had a lot of fun doing the after show with Heading East. And I think I'd like to continue that format for some of the deeper, more in-depth projects that we do, because it kind of gives us an opportunity to answer questions or talk about production. That
it's like the director's commentary on DVDs. I keep going back to the DVD extra analogy.
That's exactly kind of like what it is, you know?
Yeah, like we're trying to make all this extra content, ancillary content for this. We actually have more content about the series that we do.
Yeah.
on our YouTube channel than the actual series are long.
Yeah, totally. It's funny because like sometimes I think like, am I sharing too much? Do I have too many platforms? Like, am I making too much content? But then the flip of me is like, what do I want to watch? Like, what would I want to see from one of my favorite creators or creator that I watch? And I want to see like deep dive stuff, podcasts, longer format content. I want to see more from my favorite creators. And so that's like, I don't know. I think part of the thing going into this year is like, what do I want to see? And like, I'm going to make what I want to see.
Yeah, you know what? You can't go wrong with that recommendation. And a lot of big YouTubers will say that, like, create content that you want to watch.
Yeah.
And there's someone out there who also wants to watch it.
Yeah. And maybe that audience isn't large, but you know what? Numbers aren't everything.
Correct.
Right?
That's what I always say.
Yeah. I think too, like some advice, and we probably talked about this on the podcast before, but like going into this new year, like you're setting goals and figuring out what kind of content you make. Like don't base your goals and accomplishments off numbers that you can't control.
Yeah, it's trying to like a lesson in stoicism. Only make your goals controllable, like things that are achievable and concrete. Don't make your goals things that are out of your control, like sub counts. It's like make your goal. I want to make this many videos this year, or I want to do this course on this topic, or things that you are in. It's in your control.
Yeah.
But to say my goal is to have 1,000 subscribers this year.
Yeah, you can't control that at all. You can do a lot of things to strategize about the content you're making and how you're titling your videos and your thumbnails, but you can't control how many people actually click.
Right.
Because it's all experimenting, in my opinion.
Yeah. And then also it's experimenting, but it's also like, there's never true experimenting.
Yeah.
Because an experiment requires you to control all your variables, change one variable, record your outcome, have a hypothesis, and then did you prove or disprove the hypothesis? That's true experimenting. You can't control, you can change a variable, but you've got all sorts of different variables you can't control for.
Yeah.
Therefore, by definition, you can't experiment on YouTube. It's like you can't draw any meaningful conclusions.
Scientifically, you can't experiment.
Scientifically. So I am very suspect when I hear about like YouTube gurus, quote unquote, who like claim to say, this is the way to do it. This is the way to do it. It's like, dude, you don't know that.
Yeah. It's
like you've done something and you think there's an improvement, but realistically, this is just an observation. You have one data point, it's an anecdote. It's not science, but there's no way to do it because you're never going to have the volume of channels to be able to iron out all those other fluctuations.
Right.
You're not going to take a bunch of channels, group them into two things, randomly assign them to group A, randomly assign to group B, where one variable is different. And then you'll figure out what the best thumbnail is, or the best this, or best that. Like there's no science to back any of this stuff up.
Yeah. I think too, when you're looking at numbers, it can almost hinder experimentation in a different way. So like say if you're used to making a certain type of videos and they're performing well, and then you try something a little different and then it doesn't perform well and you get scared and go back to, getting back in that lane of making the old stuff that you were making that was performing well. Numbers and algorithms can kind of hinder growth in that way, where it doesn't allow you to experiment and try new things because they're favoring the old way.
Yeah. So here's another thing. I think I talked in the last episode, regression towards the mean.
Yeah.
That's the principle that if you're doing a task that has some sort of metric, chances are your next attempt is going to be the average, the mean. So you end up having a good video and say it's like a high up.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to try to change this. So then you're going to change a variable, and chances are your next video is not going to perform as good as your first one because it's going to have a tendency to regress towards the mean. So all of a sudden you see a downtrend between videos, like, oh, and you'll draw a conclusion that whatever I just tested means that it's not going to work. So I'm never going to do that again. When realistically, you could have done the same damn thing.
Yeah.
And you would have seen that downtick anyway.
Right.
And it's like you're trying to draw conclusions in meaningless fluctuations. It's like trying to predict the stock market. It's like you can't do it.
It's kind of like the same with thumbnails and titles too. It's like you can have a video that like does well at the beginning and then kind of falls off. And it's like, oh, if I change the thumbnail or the title, one or the other, which one is it going to perform? And like if you do it and it starts performing, is it because you changed the thumbnail or title, or would it have been you have no idea.
You have
and
no
everyone
idea.
says like, oh, you change a thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe, okay, you've seen that, once or twice, but like you could change the thumbnail like 3 or 4 times and suddenly it takes off, but maybe you would have just taken off anyway based on the title.
And it's interesting because that channel we talked about in the last podcast, Veritasium, is one of like the one of my favorite learning/science channels, and he has a video dedicated to thumbnails and titles.
Yeah.
And he specifically says that he'll have a bunch of thumbnails and he'll keep trying them. And I've heard other top YouTubers say that too. Like they'll keep trying different thumbnails until they see it pop off. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, it's like, yeah, you are, technically it's an internal control because it's the same video, the same content, but the only thing you're changing is, and it's you, it's not it's not a different person, but the only thing you're changing is the title and thumbnail. But you still don't really know for sure if it was because of the channel thumbnail, if it was just the algorithm was just picked up anyway. Yeah. For a number of different reasons, time of day, when your subscribers come on, it's like there's still a lot of variables, and people have convinced themselves that thumbnails and titles I think thumbnails and titles are important. I
agree because it's like the cover of the book. It's like, is the title enticing enough to pique your interest? And does the thumbnail look good? But then does your video perform on the quality of the thumbnail?
Yeah, but I'm not 100% convinced that like you find some magic combination and by changing it, because a video is going to run its course. Yeah. Right. And like, I have no idea if the algorithm is going to favor it because you found the holy grail of titles and thumbnails. It's like, yeah, they're important, but like, doing this rapid fire switch thing, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if I'm a believer.
Part of me is like, okay, well, like, let's try some stuff. The other part of me is like, ugh, I don't have the energy to continue to be brought down by the number and how this is performing. Like, move on to the next one. Right. Which is probably not the best way to do it when you're doing business.
Well, it's not the most efficient way when you consider getting the maximum bang for your input. Right. Yeah. But at the same time, if that's what allows you to maintain your sanity and mental health. Yeah. Then fine.
It's a balance. I was on my YouTube dashboard. I tweeted this the other day, and it was like, you didn't upload, it was like this warning, and it was like, you didn't upload a video last week, and therefore 19% of people are watching your videos less or something like that. And it was like,
views are down 19%.
Yeah, because you didn't post a video last week. And it's like, it's okay to take a break, but maybe next time make more videos and schedule them while you're gone. And I was like,
it's okay to take a break, but don't take a break.
Yeah. And then Justine was like, that's not a vacation. And the thing with that is like, in theory, like that sounds good. Make extra videos, schedule them. In practice, it's really difficult when you're trying to make a lot of videos to make extra videos. And then also, I can't post and ghost. Like I can't say schedule a video for this time, post it, and not be responding to comments. People took the time to watch the video and comment. Like, I think it's my duty for the first at least couple of hours to reply to the people who took the time to do that. So I can't sit there on my vacation, have a video go live, and then not have anxiety about it. Like I'd have anxiety just thinking about it being there, not to mention having to share it on Twitter, Instagram, your website. Like that's work. Therefore, you're not taking a break. Right. So it creates this really unhealthy work-life balance where it's like you either have to make more videos and work even harder and be really tired to schedule stuff and then still work on your vacation, or you take a break by posting it, or you take a break and they stop showing your channel, and then you have to like spend months like trying even harder to
claw your way out of the debt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's almost like living paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. It's like living video to video.
Well, it's not really like living paycheck to paycheck, but I mean...
Well, I mean, like, it's like you have no videos in the bank. Yeah. And
then you're stressed because you have no videos in the bank.
No content, and then you've got to like bang something out next week.
Yeah, and YouTube's going to tank your channel, which is why part of me just wants to stop giving a shit about the numbers and just make stuff for fun.
So I've been telling you to do, man.
I know, because like otherwise you're, busting your balls trying to put up videos and hack the algorithm and trick people into watching your videos, or make it an enticing enough title. And it's like, sometimes I just want to make videos and have fun and enjoy it. And, if it doesn't get as many views as the last one, whatever. Cause
it's 10 out of 10 video.
As soon as you start caring about a lot of that stuff, and I get it, because the more you care, the better, your videos might perform, because you're trying to do all these strategies to, get your video like in front of people, and then therefore you get paid. Like this is my job now. Like this is my full-time job. So I should be caring more about it, but then, it's happiness as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sanity.
Yeah. It's a balance. Yep. A little bit of strategy, a little bit of caring, a lot of fun, and a lot of let that shit go.
Yep. You have to.
Yeah.
Let it roll off your back, because otherwise you're going to drive yourself mad.
What would you like to see on this podcast? in 2021 or 2022. What year is it? 2022. Well, Chris, what would you like to make on this podcast in 2022?
I was just planning on making the same stuff we've been making as a BTS, if you will.
Yeah.
Of the content that we have on our main channel.
Yeah.
And the content I want to see on our main channel would be helicopters, because I enjoy helicopters.
You want to see more, you want to do more helicopter videos?
I do.
Yeah.
I think that you need to learn how to fly a helicopter.
Oh, God. I know I do. It stresses me out. Keeps me up at night thinking about it.
The two fears are like polar opposite fears pulling you from side to side. The fear that I'm going to have some sort of sudden medical event that's going to incapacitate me, and that you're going to be all you're going to be thinking is, oh my God, for that 20 seconds it takes till we hit the ground, you'll be like, wow, I really should have learned how to at least just put this helicopter on the ground safely, because I could have saved both of our lives.
I need to Google, like, how do you make yourself do something that you really don't want to do? Because that's,
versus
it's hard to, it's not just like learning how to drive. That's the thing. Like flying a helicopter, there's a lot more to it than just like pressing the pedal and pressing the brake. It's a lot. Steering. Yeah, there's a lot more to it. And like when you're afraid of heights, you get motion sick and you just don't give a shit. Like it's so hard to want to learn because it's such an effort to learn. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's like exhausting to think about, but I know
you can probably get proficient in like 10, 15 hours.
That's a long time.
You have over 100 hours.
Yeah.
Flying.
Well, anyway, we're not going to talk about this right now because this is our podversary, not stressiversary.
The stress of thinking about how to fly, but also the stress of like the fact that you've squandered the last 100 hours and not learned at all.
Yeah. Well,
and if there's ever an event, we're both dead.
Think about where I came from, not even being able to function, taking fucking Valium and Gravol to try to make it through a flight.
That's true.
Like, it took a long time to get to where I am right now, which is like recognizing my nausea as either anxiety or motion sickness. You come a long way,
but also in the course of 100 and whatever hours, you could have had a commercial helicopter license by now.
It's kind of like if I told you, like, you must learn how to make the best wedding videos of your life and then shoot 15 hours worth of videos.
If I would shoot... If the proposition was shoot.
Actually, I can't even say anything because you're the type of person who would just do whatever just to get it done. Even if you fucking were miserable.
True. But also if the proposition was to put in 15 hours to guarantee that I wasn't going to die, I'm like, yeah, that's a no-brainer investment for me.
If it's a guarantee that I'm not going to die, if that's the stakes, we should not be flying. So I'll probably have to remove 15 minutes of this podcast. Any regrets on starting the podcast?
No, it's sometimes I'm just like tired and exhausted when I get home.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes hard to force yourself to do something.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'll force myself to do something, especially if it means I'm not going to die after 15 hours. That was a perfect segue.
I'm giving you the middle fucking finger.
Right back. You had to leave it all in now.
This is the really challenging part of having a joint channel and a joint podcast, because like, if one person's not feeling it, you don't do it. But then there's the pressure for the person who's doing it full time to be showing up, as we just talked about with the algorithms and stuff, which is why on our main channel, you see me showing up the majority of the time by myself. Most of the videos are just me. And if I can include Chris in some kind of B-roll, but it is hard, man, because he doesn't have a lot of time. I'm just going to do a podcast by myself where I just talk.
Just call it Tuxedo.
Tuxedo hour. Tuxedo minute. No, but you know what? It is challenging when you work full time and you're tired to do all this stuff on the side. That's why bulk recording is
key to the existence.
But then finding the time to bulk record as well when you're not exhausted.
You'll probably notice that I'm wearing the same outfit as
the last one,
the last podcast.
If it's early enough when he gets home from work and he's like mentally feeling okay to do the podcast, let's get in at least 2 if we can. You know.
It's tough though.
It is tough. I think that was really it. It was our podversary. So we're going to start the
portmanteau of podcast and anniversary.
Yeah. It's just fun to look back on where we started and just kind of analyze when things kind of got implemented, because I think as creators and when we're starting off a project or a podcast or YouTube channel, we think we have to have it all right away. We need to have the name figured out, the concept, the niche, the gear, the lighting. We need to have it all. We need to be good on camera right away. But the reality of it is that you had to start somewhere, and the best thing to do is just start with whatever you have.
Whether they be video mics.
Whether they are video mics or a mic attached to your phone. do it, practice, experiment, see if you like it. And if you do, is it sustainable? Can you do it? Can you show up whatever your upload schedule is? And if so, then slowly add things in, right? Like we said, it was 17 episodes, was it? Or 14 episodes until we decided to do the YouTube. That's a lot. That's 14 hours of content.
Until Rhodes saw our setup and they're like, oh my God.
Oh God. If you guys are thinking about starting something this year, whether it is a podcast or YouTube channel or even photography, don't feel the pressure to have it all figured out, because behind the scenes with the people who you're watching, like, they have years and years of experience behind them. And we've all started somewhere. We've all started with not a lot, and, you know, tried to make it work and slowly added gear over time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this podcast is kind of a perfect example of that. And looking at the stages it went through with the video mics and the tights over the stretched hanger.
Definitely came a long way.
We have. And, you know, there's still improvements to make. You know, really, we should be saying a full intro every time we introductory this podcast of what this podcast actually is for, you know, think of somebody who's brand new who just turns on episode 30 out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, what the fuck does Welcome to Tuxedo Time, where we were Tuxedos in His Time podcast edition even mean? What is that?
I don't even know anymore.
It's our quirky little intro.
It is. But I mean, realistically, most people who are listening to this came from our YouTube channel.
Yeah, so it is.
I guarantee you there's probably almost zero people who stumbled upon this podcast and listen to it regularly,
listen to it and
but have no idea what our YouTube channel is.
They probably listen to the first 5 seconds. They're like, what?
Hit us up on Twitter if that describes you. I'd be very impressed if there was even one person who found our podcast and had no idea about our YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'd be curious as well. If you are watching this on YouTube, let us know in the comments what you'd like to see for 2022 and what you've been enjoying thus far. And if there's anything you want us to talk about, if you have any questions for us, let us know. We'll try to incorporate them in future episodes.
Oh, why don't we direct them to the Anchor app so that they can send us voicemails?
Yes, please go to Anchor. It's free. You don't really need a...
So how do they do it? Do they download the app?
I don't even think you need to download the app. I think you can just go to the website. You can go to our Anchor page, which will be linked in the description box, and you can send us an audio message.
We'll link to that in the show notes.
We'll link to it in the show notes. We have a segment on this podcast called Open Mic, where we take short audio messages from you guys. So yeah, let us know if you have any questions or things you'd like to hear in the new year.
There you go.
And also, if you have any suggestions on who we should call for a creatively committed segment, let us know who you'd like to hear from. I want to get Donna on the podcast.
We have to get Donna on the podcast.
And also Peter. I'd love to have a conversation about something specific with Peter.
We definitely work something out like that.
Yeah. Okay.
You guys would have plenty of stuff to talk to. You guys
I think it would be like a 5-hour long podcast just about
knives.
No, it would just be about like packaging and like design and like pretty shit. Okay, well, with that said, thank you guys so much for watching this special edition of Tuxedo Time Podversary Edition, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye.